When people think of Ireland, most of them think of St. Patrick's Day, leprechauns, rainbows, or even Lucky Charms. But I think about my family and their history. I interviewed my uncle because he seemed to know more on the topic than anyone else. And my family came from Ireland, which is located right here. We are from the west side of Ireland and from a place called Galway County. When we migrated over, my last name Fahey is very Irish. When we migrated over, we stopped at Ellis Island because that's where everyone migrated at the time. And it was actually spelled F-A-H-Y and pronounced Fahey. And a lot of pubs and stuff in Ireland, they're all called Fahey. It's a very popular name. But when they told them our last name, they just wrote it down as F-A-H-E-Y because apparently they didn't ask them how to spell it. A lot of their traditions and lifestyles still exist today, and a lot we even see in American culture. Like I said, it's located right here. It is roughly 33,000 square miles. For comparison, Michigan is roughly 97,000 square miles. So it's about a third of the size. It looks bigger on the map because world maps are warped, so it just looks a little bigger. It's actually smaller. Northern Ireland, there's 33 provinces. 6 of the provinces, the northernmost in Ireland, are owned by the UK, and the rest of Ireland is independent and on their own. They get a lot of rain there. It rains a lot all year round, so it's very green. There's a lot of grassland. It's very beautiful. If you look up pictures, it looks just like a beautiful place to go. They have many traditions, one of the most popular ones being St. Patrick's Day. Ireland's patron saint, St. Patrick, was one of the most famous people to ever come to Ireland. He was born in Britain, but when he was 16, he was captured by Irish pirates and taken to Ireland. As a slave, he found God, and then he left Ireland, and through God, he thought he should go back and spread the word of God. And he did, and that's why Ireland is religious, so they praise him as a saint. Halloween also originated from many different cultures, but one of the cultures is Irish. They have a Celtic pagan festival called Samhain, which means the end of summer. It takes place in Celtic Ireland. The Irish people celebrated the beginning of winter on October 31st, just like Halloween, with this festival. They thought that the gap between our world, the mortal world, and the dead world was closest on this day so that the spirits roamed free. They would dress up as animals to hide from the spirits, hence why we dress up in costumes, and they used to carve scary faces into turnips and put them on their door to scare away the evil spirits, which is why we carve faces into pumpkins. Their food is, it's kind of similar to our food here, just a little. For breakfast, it's usually porridge or oatmeal, not Lucky Charms. Their biggest meal of the day, unlike America, is lunch. In America, our biggest meal is dinner, but for lunch, they have big lunches. Usually it's just meat, lamb chops, pork, chicken, all that good stuff. And then dinner is the same thing, just less of it. Stereotypically, they do love potatoes, and their main export out of their country is potatoes. They eat a lot of potatoes, but they also eat peas and cabbage and onions and carrots just like us. Some fun facts about Ireland. It's known throughout the world for its vast amount of castles. There were a lot of wars fought back then, and they built castles to protect them, their city, and their families from invaders. And today most of the castles are still standing, not fully, but just the ruins of them, and a lot of people like to go and visit them. Irish people actually speak English. Every one of them do, but the school children are still taught the Irish language, but not very many of them speak it fluently. Over 80% of Ireland's people are Roman Catholic. I see this because my dad was raised Catholic, my grandpa's Catholic, and my whole dad's side of the family, they're all Catholic, and that's where it comes from. And another fun fact is that the Titanic was actually built in Ireland. In conclusion, after interviewing my uncle and doing research, I learned more about my origin, where I came from, and the history of Ireland, and I hope you did too.
Okay, so I conducted my speech with my grandmother and her dad, which is my great-grandpa, who is 90 years old. And the purpose of this speech is to inform you about the culture of my family's nationality and the practices that have been used in my family, as well as the religion and the German ethnicity. I'll do this by telling you our German traditions, family traditions, and the religion and practices that we use in our family. Coming from Wallace Handrell at BrittonNautica.com, German traditions are most of Germans acquired food from both supermarkets and specialty shops such as bakeries and butcher shops. 48% of the total area of Germany, which is right here, includes laborers, entrepreneurs, employees, and clerical managers, administrators, and members of various professions. Pork is a commonly consumed meat through various sorts of wursts, which is like a sausage, lots of meat, cabbage, beans, and turnips. That's just a little background on the food. Now I'll talk about my family traditions. After traveling to America, my ancestors bought land in Anaheim, California. This was to farm. They farmed vegetables, mostly green peppers. They'd use railroad cars to ship their produce to different areas. Then my family moved to Washington. Not sure where, but they bought a land in a ghost town, which forced them out of business with their farming. And there was no laws to protect frauds, so they kind of got scammed with agriculture in Washington. And my family moved to Michigan around 1920 to farm. This was the start of the Great Depression and the Roaring '20s, and they had to farm in order to feed their family. My grandpa Holly, who I stated earlier, when he moved to Michigan, he lived in Owasso, and he would travel to Flint every weekend with sweet beets, and he'd sell them at the supermarket, which is a German practice that always been used in my family, to go sell at the supermarkets. Family was a big part of the German tradition. Big family cookouts. A lot of the food they had there was homemade ice cream, lemon pies, and sauerkraut, which were all foods that my grandpa stated he had. Like I said, farming was a big part of their family practices, and after he would sell food in Flint, he would go to Sandusky, Michigan, and grow peppermint and potatoes. The religion in Germany that my grandpa knew of was Christianity. He said that it made about 65 to 70% of Germany. And that shows because majority of my family is Christian, as they were growing up and believed those practices. Religion in Germany ended up being distributed according to the preference and local rulers. South and West Germany are majority Catholic, which my grandpa said his family was from South Germany, which would show why they were Catholic. And then the North and East Germany were primarily Protestant, which was not where he was from. Then other strands of Christian religion in Germany it was called Free Evangelical Churches, and those would adhere to baptism, Methodism, and other related faiths such as Mennonites and two Orthodox churches, which my grandpa went to the Catholic churches in Germany. In conclusion, the purpose of this speech was to inform you about the culture of my family's nationality and practices that have been used in my family, as well as the German religion and practices.
Have you ever wondered about your ethnical heritage? Did your family come to America in search for prosperity or to flee oppression? My family has many ethnical backgrounds, including English, German, Irish, and French, but in my speech I'll be focusing on my English background. According to information gathered from my grandmother Sherry Bowen, my grandpa Wayne Bowen, and my great-grandmother Beverly Lawrence, the Lawrence family is on my dad's grandfather's side. William and Anne Barrett Lawrence moved from Reading, Berkshire, England in 1845 and settled in Union, Canada. After living in Canada for nearly 20 years, the family relocated to Atrium Township, Michigan, which is in Shiawassee County, in 1864, and they started a small but profitable family farm. A notable member of my family was Colonel John Lawrence. He moved from Union, Canada in 1858 to become one of the first settlers of the Dakota Territory in modern-day South Dakota. He served as a territorial legislator in 1863 and 1864 and served as a legislative counselor from 1872 and 1874. Later, he served as Sergeant-at-Arms for the United States House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. and Deputy U.S. Marshal of the Dakota Territory. He is buried in Mount Moriah Cemetery in the county which bears his name. My specific purpose is to inform my classmates about the English culture. England is a country in northwestern Europe. It's this country right here. It's about physically the same size as the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. According to countries and their cultures, after the Romans withdrew from England in 410 CE, the Angles and Saxons took over, establishing early English culture, hence the term Anglo-Saxon. Modern English has a very, very similar culture to our own, simply because we were their colonies once, so there's not huge differences in our culture. But they do have a much longer and richer history. According to the History Channel, England is mostly Protestant Christian, specifically Anglican. The Church of England was founded in 1534, because the Pope at the time refused to annul the marriage of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, which angered the king and encouraged him to separate from the Catholic Church. According to both the History Channel and countries and their cultures, English arts are also heavily inspired by religion. London is the center of live theater in the English-speaking world, and it has produced throughout its history great performances and playwrights such as William Shakespeare. English culture was cultivated for centuries prior to colonizations, so aside from a few eccentricities, American culture is practically imperceptible. I mean, we have more diversity, a little bit more diversity here, so we have a bit of a melting pot. But one interesting cultural difference I found interesting was the adherence to Boxing Day, which, according to Snopes, is a secular holiday observed on December 26th each year. This holiday began as a day when masters would release their servants to celebrate Christmas with a box of gifts, money, and food, because they would be serving their masters on Christmas Day and wouldn't be able to be with their family. The modern tradition has kind of evolved from its 19th century origins to the English people giving gifts to anybody who serves them, so a mail carrier or like a supermarket clerk, just anybody who provides a service for them. And it thanks them for their services throughout the year. So in conclusion, the Lawrence family, which is my great-grandfather's side, exercised no English traditions when they came here, due largely in part to the similarities between our cultures, except for those already found in American culture. I hope I was able to duly inform you about my English heritage and English culture, including my family background, based on interviews with my mother, Bernadette Bowen, my grandparents, Wayne and Cheryl Bowen, and my great-grandmother, Beverly Lawrence, all conducted on December 8, 2019, and basic English history and important cultural facts and figures. Thank you.